The humming core of the relay station filled the air with a low, vibrating pulse that made Ryder Quinn's temples ache. He'd been pulling double shifts for the last 3 days, patching together alien and human cum systems with a toolkit that belonged in a museum and nerves held together by caffeine. Cables ran like vines across the floor, and glowing interfaces blinked with symbols that still made him feel like a kid trying to read ancient poetry. Tessari vel'nar knelt beside him, graceful even in a maintenance crawl space. She was wearing a utility robe cinched at the waist with glinting silver trim that shimmered in the station light. Her long tail covered in sleek, patterned skin that moved like liquid silk swayed behind her as she leaned forward to open the lower relay compartment. Ryder tried to keep his eyes on the diagnostics panel, but his brain, fogged from exhaustion and proximity, slipped out. "Okay, that is absolutely not the kind of tail you tug on." He didn't say it. He didn't mean to. It wasn't even a fully formed sentence, just a dumb, wandering thought from a tired mind. A silent, private reflex, except it wasn't private. Tessari froze, hand suspended midair over the exposed conduit. Her slender shoulders tensed. Slowly, she turned her head, the silver pattern along her cheekbone catching the light. Her violet eyes locked onto him, wide and unreadable. Across the station bay, 2 other Xyrlith engineers paused. One dropped a datapad. Another simply turned and stared, as if time itself had HECUPED. Ryder blinked. Did I miss something?" Tessari stood, her movements precise but suddenly stiff, and faced him fully. "Are you certain of your intent, human?" He blinked again. "My what? Your intent?" "The declaration you made with clarity and emotional resonance." "Oh, no." "Wait, no," he said, holding up his hands. "I didn't say anything. I was just thinking." "We heard," she interrupted, her voice calm but her posture rigid. "All of us heard. Your thoughts, carried with focus." He chuckled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Listen, Tessari, I'm sorry if that came off weird. I didn't mean anything by it, really. It was just ... A slip, nothing serious." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded slowly and turned back to the console. "As you say, Engineer Quinn." And that was it. Except at WASN single quotes T. The next morning, Ryder was pulled from his bunk before dawn by 2 stone-faced human security officers and escorted to the diplomatic sector. He hadn't even put his boots on before he found himself standing in front of an enormous obsidian door carved with glowing Xyrlith script. Inside, the chamber was silent except for the faint hum of crystalline structures that pulsed with telepathic energy. High Matron Sheila sat on a throne-like seat, flanked by Tessari and several other Xyrlith elders. A human translator approached, eyes wide with something between pity and amusement. "Engineer Ryder Quinn," the translator said. In a hushed tone, "you have proposed, publicly, irrevocably." The room was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Ryder Quinn stood at the center of the Xyrlith tribunal chamber, heart hammering against his ribs as if trying to escape. Above him, translucent arcs of crystal webbing formed. A dome that refracted the light into shifting patterns, blue, silver, violet. Each shift marked the presence of a different emotional current in the room. Right now, the air shimmered with deep lavender and steel gray. Formality and scrutiny. Tessari vel'nar stood on the elevated dais, cloaked not in her usual utility robes but in a flowing ceremonial garment of iridescent threads. Her violet eyes were unreadable, fixed somewhere over his shoulder, and her long tail was coiled neatly around her boots. Beside her stood Elder Vixa, her mentor, whose expression could have frozen stars. "Engineer Quinn," came a voice that filled the chamber like distant thunder. It belonged to Elder Zendel, second voice of the Xylith matronate. We will now proceed to confirmation. A human liaison leaned in from the edge of the platform, whispering in Ryder's ear. They're asking if you accept the declaration you made yesterday. I didn't make one, Ryder whispered back. His voice dried out. The liaison gave a helpless shrug. They don't see it that way. Zendel's voice deepened, pressing through the air like gravity. You thought it, with clarity, with intent. The declaration was heard by 9 bonded Xylith within proximity. By our law, this constitutes initiation of the sacred form ritual. Rejection at this stage would be a cultural severance. Ah. Collective inhale hissed through the room. Cultural severance. That was the Xylith term for irreparable diplomatic offense. Not war, exactly, but a spiritual exile from their trust. It meant lost alliances, sanctioned trade collapses, and, worst of all, political dishonor. Do you understand the weight of what has occurred? Zendel continued. And the choice now laid before you? Ryder swallowed. Barely. Elder Vexa tilted her head slightly. Then allow us to educate. The walls of the chamber shifted, shimmering as if dipped in liquid crystal. Suddenly, Ryder wasn't just in the room anymore. He was inside a vision, projected psychically to all present. It was a memory. Not his. He saw a pair of Xylith, younger than Tessari, standing in a moonlit field surrounded by floating orbs of light. One reached toward the other. A thought passed between them. Not words, not images, but pure, focused admiration. The moment it was felt, everything stopped. The glow intensified. The elders arrived, and the bonding ritual began. Thought, in Xylith culture, wasn't just private reflection. It was sacred offering. When the vision faded, Ryder stood trembling. All that over a stray thought? Tessari finally turned to face him. Not stray, she said. Your mind was focused. You admired my form in a way that reached beyond speech. Your thoughts revealed want, vulnerability, honesty. That is what we listen for. And if I say I didn't mean to declare anything? Elder. Vexa stepped forward. Then you will be branded as one who speaks lies within thought, a paradox, a danger. The Xylith had no cultural concept for sarcasm or impulsive internal monologue. To them, what you think was who you were. Captain. Morgan Reyes appeared beside the chamber's threshold, his face tight with tension. Quinn, we need to talk. Now the council permitted it. They stepped into a private alcove, a narrow antechamber that still pulsed with low-grade telepathic fields. Ryder leaned against a column, exhausted. They're not kidding, Reyes muttered. Intel just flagged this. 3 trade accords, 2 defense pacts, and 1 orbital mining operation are hanging on whether you walk out of here engaged or excommunicated. You're telling me I'm the fate of interstellar relations over a tail thought? No, Reyes said. I'm telling you that if you back out now, you will personally be labeled as diplomatically unstable. Earth Command won't say it, but you'll be reassigned quietly, probably to something with lower gravity and no door locks. Ryder blinked. So what are my options? Reyes straightened. They'll let you enter a trial courtship, non-binding, lasts 3 cycles. At the end, you either confirm bonding or both parties walk away with honor. Ryder looked back toward the glowing chamber. Tessari was standing in the center now, alone, composed, beautiful in a way that was no longer just physical. There was dignity in her stillness, but also tension, as if she too was waiting for something she didn't know how to ask for. He felt something shift inside him. Maybe it was the weight of the moment. Maybe it was the absurdity of it all. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the strange truth that deep down he didn't want to walk away. Fine, Ryder said, stepping back into the chamber. I'll accept the trial. I'll see it through. Elder Vexa nodded once, and Tessari's tail flicked in what might have been surprise or approval. Then it is done. Zendel intoned. Let the sacred interval begin. The crystals. Flashed gold. The chamber erupted in light, and just like that, Ryder Quinn had 3 cycles to decide if his accidental attraction was really something more, and to survive what the Zyrlith considered courtship. Ryder Quinn had imagined alien courtship rituals would involve strange dances, maybe exchanging glowy rocks or communicating through weird smells. What he didn't expect was being handed a blade. The Zyrlith trial had begun. Tessari stood across from him in the training circle, no longer dressed in formal robes, but in sleek tactical armor that flexed with her every breath. Her tail moved in slow, deliberate coils behind her like a serpent ready to strike. She held her blade in reverse grip, the crystal edge humming faintly in the charged air. You must learn, she said. How we fight, how we feel. Is how you date? Ryder asked, gripping the dull practice weapon they'd given him. Because I think back on Earth we just, go out for coffee and try not to get stabbed. Tessari's eyes sparkled with something close to amusement. The blade reveals truth, instinct, emotional control. If we are to share a bond, we must share movement, rhythm, trust. A low drumbeat began to pulse through the chamber ancient. Zyrlith courtship rhythm, not romantic, but ritualistic. Bodies in sync, instincts colliding, Ryder stepped forward. Their blades clashed. The first contact was light testing. Then it built. Tessari's strikes came swift, not cruel, but unrelenting. Ryder blocked, stumbled, adjusted. Sweat beaded on his brow. His feet moved before his brain could catch up. And somewhere in the middle of the clash, he started to feel her. Not just her strikes, but her intent behind them. Frustration. Curiosity, restraint. Their thoughts weren't linked yet, but the ritual was emotional projection, a test to see if their instincts would synchronize without telepathy, and to Ryder's surprise, they did. She swung. He ducked. He feinted. She smiled. It became a rhythm. Not a duel, but a dance. Then came the twist. With one sudden strike, Tessari disarmed him. His blade clattered across the floor. She closed the distance with a predator's grace, pinning him with a hand against his chest. Their faces were inches apart. You didn't fear me, she said softly. He shook his head, breathless. Should I have? Most do, she whispered. Especially when they realize this is not a performance. It is a glimpse into what we are, into what you might become, bonded to one of us. He looked into her eyes, and in that moment, the truth hit him. Not fear, not confusion, but something dangerously close to awe. Later, as he walked the crystal-lit halls alone, a Zyrlith child ran past him chasing a floating orb. Her laughter echoed like wind chimes. He paused, watching her. An elder nearby approached him. You danced well today, the old voice said. Ryder turned. It was Elder Vexa. I didn't know it was a test, he admitted. Most truths are not announced, Vexa replied. They emerge. Like heat from friction. Do you think I passed? The elder studied him. You moved with her, not against her, and she let you. That is rare. As the elder walked away, Tessari appeared beside him, silent as ever. You moved well, she said without looking at him. I had a good teacher, he replied, meaning it. They walked the corridor side by side, the silence between them no longer awkward. It pulsed with something unspoken, something becoming. They entered a quiet chamber, one tessari called the Hall of Mirrors. Here, emotions were amplified, reflected. They stood before a crystalline wall that mirrored not their faces, but their feelings. Ryder saw his reflection flicker between confusion and warmth. Tessari shimmered with guarded longing. This is the second phase, she said. What's it called? Raw heart. She reached out not physically, but emotionally, letting down a layer of her inner thoughts. Ryder felt it like static at the back of his mind. Not words, not images, just sensation. She was offering emotional proximity. No force, no invasion. Just the invitation to feel her world. He didn't run. He didn't joke. He stepped closer. His own thoughts responded. And for the first time, their minds brushed like fingertips meeting in a darkened room. A flash of memory, his brother, leaving Earth. A flicker of hers, her first loss in battle. A laugh his. Under a rainstorm on Luna Base. A song hers from a childhood ritual. They were no longer separate, but not yet fused. When it ended, they stood in silence, both blinking back the weight of it. I don't know what this is, Ryder admitted. Neither do I, Tessari replied. But we are walking it, together. The next day brought the sixth day. Third trial. A shared dream. A simulation chamber infused with neural pulse emitters. One mind leads. One follows. To see if their instincts align. But when Ryder entered the chamber, Tessari was not there. Instead, Elder Vexa met him with grave eyes. Tessari has requested time alone, she said. Why? Ryder asked, dread pooling in his gut. Vexa hesitated. Because your emotions in the dream last night revealed something even she did not expect. What did I reveal? Vexa placed a hand on his shoulder. You loved her, already. Ryder couldn't sleep. The silence of his guest quarters in the Zyrlith capital was oppressive. Not quiet but alive, as if the walls themselves listened. Every surface shimmered faintly in the low light, like a heartbeat pulsing beneath the veil. Stone. Tessari hadn't spoken to him since the dream-sharing revelation. Not even a message. Not even a flicker of telepathic presence. He kept replaying the dream in his mind. The false sky, the open plains, the feeling of her fingers intertwined with his. They'd run together across a sea of stars. No armor, no titles, no fears. Just two souls moving as one. He remembered saying, "Don't go." He remembered the weight of those words, and she'd heard it all. He didn't know how. He hadn't even known he meant it until it left his lips in the dream. Now she was gone. A soft chime echoed through his quarters, and the door opened. Tessar. I stood there, but something had changed. Her usual calm was cracked. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders, and she wore no uniform, no robes, just a sleeveless tunic and the faintest shimmer of armor at her hips. She looked vulnerable. I walked the storm gardens tonight, she said. Ryder blanked. Is that like your version of stress eating? We meditate among lightning, she answered. It helps us see clearly. And did it help? She stepped closer, eyes dark with something unreadable. No. I still don't know what to do. The room went quiet again, thick with all the words they hadn't said. Tessari, Ryder began carefully. If I crossed a line in that dream, if I made you uncomfortable. You didn't, she interrupted. You made me feel. She sat beside him on the low bench, folding her legs beneath her like a coiled dancer. We don't love quickly, Ryder. Our bonds form over decades. We're trained to suppress fleeting emotion, to prioritize harmony over passion. So I broke your cultural rulebook? You cracked it, she said with the ghost of a smile. And then you dropped it in a fire. He looked down. Should I apologize? She shook her head. No. Because for the first time in years, I'm not following protocol. I'm following curiosity. He looked at her, really looked. Her skin was a canvas of pale starlight and violet undertones. Her eyes weren't just beautiful, they were searching, cautious, maybe even hoping. You said I loved you, he murmured. But do you believe that? Tessari didn't answer with words. She reached out, palm upward, and offered her hand. This wasn't Zyrlith formality. It wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was raw and human. A request. Ryder took it. The moment their palms touched, the air in the room shifted. His thoughts opened without permission, not like forced intrusion, but like a door swinging wide to let in the night breeze. Memories flowed between them, faster than speech could carry. His first crash landing. Her first command. His fear of being alone. Her fear of being known. Emotions blended, not perfect, not symmetrical, but true. Each messy thought, each flawed desire, each buried pain. Tessar, I single quotes, says. Grip tightened. I don't want to run from this, she said aloud. Me neither. Then we must go deeper. What does that mean? She stood, pulling him gently to his feet. It means the Karen. The phase of soul mirroring. He followed her through the winding corridors of the spire, up a lift of floating crystal platforms, past sentinels who bowed their heads as she passed. At the summit, they entered a chamber of living quartz. The walls pulsed with a low hum. Remove your fear, she whispered, and everything else. Without hesitation, he stripped away the layers, boots, shirt, doubt. Tessar, I did the same, revealing not just her form, but the markings that glowed faintly across her skin like celestial constellations. They weren't tattoos. They were memory scars, symbols of honor, grief, and growth. Each one shimmered in response to his presence. Lie with me, she said. They sank onto the woven light mat, their bodies closed but not touching. Above them, the ceiling opened, revealing the stars of both their worlds projected through ancient lensing stones. We will mirror each other's essence, Tessari said. No walls. No filters. Every part of us laid bare. Sounds terrifying. It is. Their foreheads touched. Then their minds fused. This time, there were no dreams. No romantic illusions. Just truth. Ryder saw himself through her eyes, arrogant, clumsy, reckless, but also brave, loyal, and full of unexpected tenderness. Tessar, I saw herself through his cold. Unreachable, perfect, but also aching, human in her own way. Desperate for connection beneath centuries of discipline. And then came the storm. When two minds open fully, emotions don't flow, they collide. Fear, lust, sorrow, awe, joy, shame. Each one hitting them like waves. Ryder felt her pleasure at his honesty. She felt his grief for all the years he'd been unseen. They cried, not because they were sad, but because no one had ever understood them like this. And in that glowing chamber, under mirrored stars, they kissed. Not with hunger. But with revelation. When they parted, their minds still echoing with shared truths, Tessari whispered, This is not tradition. Good, Ryder replied. I'm not here for tradition. Then what are you here for? You. And for the first time in Zyrlith history, a trial courtship entered Phase 4 ahead of schedule. The joining of wills, and outside the chamber, unseen, a silent figure in deep violet robes turned from the observation crystal and whispered to her attendants, It has begun. The human did not falter. The prophecy is real. Ryder awoke to silence, but not the peaceful kind. It was the dense, electrified stillness before a storm. He could feel it under his skin, humming like the aftershock of the soul-mirroring ceremony. Tessari was gone. Her scent lingered faintly in the air, violet moss, rain-cooled crystal. The heat of her touch had faded, but something else remained. A presence. He sat up quickly, scanning the room. Elder Vexa stood in the doorway, robed in violet and silver. You bonded, she said simply. Not completely, Ryder answered, rubbing his eyes. We mirrored, shared, but we didn't seal anything. Vexa stepped forward, her expression unreadable. And yet, the joining marked you. What are you talking about? She extended her hand, palm glowing faintly. Ryder felt a sharp pull in his chest, and when he looked down, he saw it, a mark, glowing faintly above his heart, circular, layered with geometric lines. What the hell is that? A sigil of resonance, Vexa said softly. It only forms when two minds unlock mutual essence. It is ... old, older than any of us, older than the council. Ryder stood, pulse quickening. Is this dangerous? No, Vexa said, but it is rare. And it changes everything. He followed her through the temple corridors, his thoughts spiraling. He wasn't just part of some alien courtship anymore. He was now marked physically by a bond he hadn't fully consented to, with a species that revered such marks as sacred. They entered a subterranean chamber lined with carvings, thousands of them, etched into obsidian walls, glowing faintly, with psychic residue. At the center stood Tessari, her arms crossed, eyes unreadable. You knew, he said to her. I suspected. She admitted. Vexa moved between them. This place is called the Echo Vault. Each of these carvings is a record of a bonded pair whose resonance altered our history. Warriors, healers, seers, and now ... you. Ryder stared at the walls. Every symbol, every mark, it was a story. Why me? He whispered. I was just an engineer. A sarcastic, sleep-deprived nobody who thought something dumb about your tale. Vexa smiled faintly. Your thought was not dumb, it was honest. And the universe responds to honesty with opportunity. He turned to Tessari. So what now? What does this mean for us? She stepped closer. It means we don't get to decide in private anymore. Moments later, the council chambers lit up with activity. Delegates from other Xylith cities arrived. Messages poured in from human diplomatic stations. And overhead, the orbital satellites buzzed with encrypted signals. Someone or something had activated when Ryder's mark appeared. Captain Reyes was brought down from orbit personally. His uniform was crisp, but his expression was anything but calm. Quinn, he said without ceremony. What the hell did you just trigger? That's the question of the day, Ryder muttered. Vexa stepped forward, addressing both humans. The mark that formed upon your soldier is referenced in our oldest texts. It is called the Ignara Kalon, the soul spark. It only appears when two species are destined to converge. Reyes frowned. Converge? Bond. Evolve. Unify. You mean like diplomatic cooperation? Vexa's gaze was sharp. I mean something deeper, something irreversible. An aide entered, whispering something in Tessari's ear. She turned to Ryder, eyes wide with alarm. There's more. What? The satellites just detected a ship coming through the veil. Everyone froze. What veil? Reyes asked. A sealed region of space, Tessari said. Forbiddens, ancient, even we do not enter it. Nothing comes out, until now. A hologram flickered to life above the chamber. It showed a vessel enormous, black as voidstone, shaped like a scar carved across reality. No heat signatures. No identifiable tech. No transmission. Just ... movement. Slow, deliberate, unstoppable. Vexa looked pale. This confirms the prophecy. Which prophecy? Reyes demanded. Tessar. I stepped beside Ryder, her voice steady but low. The one that says a human mind would awaken what was buried. That only through bonding would the gate open. And that the marked, she looked at him, would be the first target. Ryder blinked. Wait. You're saying this thing is coming for me? Vexa nodded. Why? Because you and Tessari are now more than diplomats. More than lovers. Your bond created a signal, a psychic flare. And now, something that has slept beyond stars knows your name. The room went dead silent. Reyes turned to Ryder. Congrats. You're officially the most important liability in the galaxy. Tessari didn't flinch. He is not a liability, he is mine. And if this enemy seeks him ... it will answer to me. Ryder felt a rush of emotion rise in his throat. Fear, confusion, pride. What do we do? He asked quietly. Tessar. I stepped forward, voice firm. We finish what we started. The trial courtship was no longer about emotion. It had become a weapon. And in 3 days, if they completed the final phase, they wouldn't just be bonded. They would be unified in power. Which, if the prophecy was true, might be the only thing that could stop what was coming. The Zyrlith capital had gone into lockdown. Diplomatic gardens, once blooming with light and song, now echoed with the heavy stomp of warrior patrols. Plasma barricades shimmered in the corridors. The resonance towers, the towering crystal obelisks, that pulsed with psionic harmony, were now humming at maximum frequency, forming a planetary shield unseen for centuries. Ryder stood at the edge of the observation deck, watching the alien sky pulse in unfamiliar patterns. 2 moons hung low, casting their light across Tessari city like watchful eyes. His chest still tingled with the Ignara Callan mark. It had spread, slightly delicate branches of energy now reaching toward his shoulder, like it was growing. You're not sleeping, Tessari said, stepping beside him. She wore her ceremonial armor, now lightweight, flexible, and woven with gleaming black fiber and ancient sigils that pulsed with her heartbeat. Kind of hard when an ancient horror is flying toward you at sublight speeds, Ryder said with a dry smile. Tessari studied him. You're adapting faster than expected. It's how humans survive, he replied. We panic later. A silence passed between them, not awkward, but heavy with what they hadn't said. What happens if we complete the final bonding? He asked. We become one mind, not permanently fused, but intertwined. You will feel me even across light years. And I will feel you. And what if we don't? Tessari looked away. Then the bond phrase. And the signal we've already sent might be incomplete, uncontained, like a beacon without purpose. And the being coming through the veil will interpret that as an invitation without direction. So we're damned if we do, and possibly doomed if we don't. No, she said firmly. We are only doomed if we're afraid to choose. He turned to face her. And what do you choose, Tessari? Her eyes glowed faintly with inner fire. I choose you. Before he could respond, a violent quake rocked the platform. Klaxons howled across the capital. The sky above flashed red. Impact. Detected, came a voice over the loudspeakers. They sprinted down to the inner command spire, where Elder Vexa and Captain Reyes stood over a multi-tiered display of orbiting ships. The alien vessel had arrived, but it hadn't fired. It hadn't landed. It had simply ... hovered. Broadcasting nothing. It's waiting, Vexa said. Watching, for what? Reyes asked. For the bonding, Tessari whispered. Ryder looked up sharply. How can it know? Because it's not just responding to us, Vexa replied. It's responding to the echo left by a bonding. That once failed, long ago. A second display flared to life. An archived transmission encoded in Zyrlith script. A black and white visual feed. It showed another human, far older, dressed in a fragmented prototype of a modern spacesuit, standing beside a Zyrlith woman. This footage is 300 years old, Vexa said. That's impossible, Reyes said. We only made contact with your people 40 years ago. Not officially, Tessari replied. But one of your ship's an experimental FTL prototype entered our system by accident. Before your world had even developed psychic shielding, Ryder leaned in. What happened to them? They bonded, Vexa said, but imperfectly. The human died, and the Zyrlith woman mad. She sent out a psychic scream that nearly shattered our entire species. We sealed the system, created the veil, and buried the memory. The hologram zoomed in. The man in the footage turned his face remarkably similar to Ryder's same eyes. Same jawline. Family. His name was Silas Quinn, Vexa said. Your ancestor. The world tilted under Ryder's feet. He was marked, Tessari added, just like you. And suddenly it all made sense. The dreams, the resonance, the instinctive bond. So this was never just about you and me, Ryder said, voice hollow. This was fate. No, Tessari corrected. This is choice. Fate gave us the spark. We decide what to do with it. Reyes stepped forward. If that thing up there is tied to a broken bond from the past, maybe completing yours will close the loop. Stabilize the energy. Or unleash something worse, Ryder said. Silence fell. Then Tessari reached for his hand. We finish the ceremony. Tonight. You're sure? If we delay, more will come. The veil is weakening. And I won't let your people or mine face this without giving us the best chance. He looked into her eyes. He saw no hesitation. Just fire. And trust. Okay, Ryder said. Then let's finish this. Hours later, the Great Hall of Union opened for the first time in centuries. Lit by twin suns and filled with the leaders of two species. The chamber pulsed with energy, both sacred and raw. Tessari and Ryder stepped to the center dais, where a lattice of glowing crystal circled them like floating petals. The bonding ritual was simple. Speak one truth, give one memory, and open one. Final door. Tessari, I went first. Her truth. I fear losing myself. Her memory. Her mother, singing her to sleep beneath the veil sky. Her door. Open mind. Open body. Open will. Then Ryder. His truth. I never thought I was worthy of being seen. His memory. The day his father left, leaving only a broken circuit. Board. His door. No more masks. The crystals responded. Energy surged. The sigil on Ryder's chest exploded in golden light. Their minds connected, not in fragments. Not in whispers, but in full unity. Emotion, memory, instinct. Pain, pleasure, hope, fear. All of it. Together. And then a scream. From the skies above. The alien ship responded. It fired a beam into orbit, one that split reality itself. Vexa shouted. They're opening a gate. But Tessari and Ryder stood firm. We hold the line, she said. Together, he replied, and as the gate widened, revealing a storm of shadow and fire, their bodies glowed with golden energy, the completed bond forged not by prophecy, but by choice. They were ready. And whatever had been waiting beyond that veil now had something new to fear. The sky tore open. A wound across the stars, bleeding violet fire into the upper atmosphere. The orbital shields strained. The Zyrlith towers trembled. Energy surged across ley lines buried beneath the capital. In the Great Hall of Union, Ryder and Tessari stood at the center of a storm they had unknowingly inherited and now fully awakened. Voice not heard but felt boomed across their joined minds. The bond is formed. The loop is closed. The final convergence begins. Elder Vexa stumbled back. It speaks through the psychic lattice. It was never a ship. It was a gatekeeper. Captain Reyes barked into his communicator. Scramble defense fleets. Initiate. Full system lockdown. But nothing moved fast enough. From the gate. Something emerged. Not a ship. Not a fleet. A being. Its form defied definition, part armor, part shadow, part memory. It was the embodiment of what the Zyrlith called the first fracture, the psychic echo left behind when Silas Quinn died incomplete in bonding. Wound that had never healed. A wound that had become sent. Hovered above the capital, massive and terrible, its shape rippling across wavelengths that made the ground cry. Children wept. Warriors fell to one knee. Even the resonance tower's dim dot had focused on Ryder and Tessari. You were the mark of the broken one. You summoned me. You are mine. Ryder stepped forward, teeth clenched. We're not yours. We chose each other. You're a mistake. A shadow. Of something that never had the courage to finish. Tessari joined him, glowing with unified energy. You are not a god. You are a scar. And scars fade. The being lunged, but they were ready. The completed bond between Ryder and Tessari flared with blinding gold and silver light interwoven, harmonic. It wasn't just power. It was understanding. They reached together into the lattice, into the planetary resonance system the Xylith had built over millennia. A psychic amplifier. A web of memory. They turned themselves into a beacon, and they called. Not for help. Not for war. For healing. The voice that left Tessari's lips was not hers alone. It carried both of them, woven with human grit and Xylith grace. You were born of pain, but pain is not truth. Pain is not the end. We choose another path. The entity screamed, its form destabilizing. Waves of corrupted memory bled from its body, echoes of Silas's death. Tessari's ancestors' collapse. Centuries of regret passed through void space, and Ryder did something that had never been done. He offered it peace. He opened the bond, inviting the entity to see the truth. His love for Tessar, her love for him. The shared laughter, the shared terror, the walk through the storm gardens, the kiss in the mirrored chamber, the raw heart, the soul mirror, the choice. We finished what? They could not, he thought. And for the first time since the veil was sealed. The shadow blinked. Then, slowly, impossibly, it shattered. A soft wind passed over the city. The veil closed with a sigh. The wound healed. And silence returned. For a long time, no one moved. Then the towers began to sing. The children stopped crying. The crystals pulsed gently with calm. And Elder Vexa fell to her knees, not in despair, but in relief. The convergence had ended not with conquest, but with consent. Weeks later, Ryder stood on a platform overlooking the gardens he once walked with Tessari during their first trial. Except now, it wasn't a trial. It was their life. He wore Xylith colors, now midnight blue, lined with light gold thread. Tessari's tail wrapped loosely around his waist, not as a sign of ownership, but of equal choosing. The mark on his chest remained, but now it shimmered softly. No longer a symbol of danger. Now a symbol of hope. Earth and Xylith signed a new accord. The Quinn Protocol, a cultural agreement protecting interspecies bonding and encouraging emotional transparency across all species. They became the first recognized bonded pair of the Interstellar Unity Council, and more importantly, they were happy. You still think about the moment this all started? Tessari asked one night, curled beside him under the open sky. He laughed. You mean when I accidentally thought something wildly inappropriate about your tail? Yes, she said, smiling with those fierce, gentle eyes. That moment. I do, he said. A lot. Do you regret it? He shook his head slowly. Not for a second. She leaned in, brushing her lips against his. Then maybe, she whispered, fate doesn't always need permission to begin something beautiful. As the stars stretched across the heavens, Ryder Quinn, once a drifting engineer, and Tessari vel'nar, once a disciplined envoy, now stood as proof that the heart can break ancient silence, and that even the dumbest thought, if honest, can echo across the galaxy and change it forever.